Okay, so you are linked to your father's record, and it shows that he is still living. We want to go in and try to figure out how to update that since he recently passed away. As we click on his record and go to his person record, see that this says he's a living person, and there's his relationship to you. But if you look down, and he's got the proper relationship to his parents, both of whom have passed away. But there's also two other David Philip Dances that he is linked to, both of which show a date of death, which is not this one's not correct, actually, to April 2018. And this date of death is correct. And you'll notice on this one that all of the ordinances show, and we verified that those are the correct dates of those ordinances. What I think is happening here is that the sealing to spouse doesn't show up because your mother is still living. So if we look on the one that has the incorrect death date, let me just click into the person so that you can see the ordinances. And interestingly enough, they all say that the ordinances are not ready. And I think if you hover over it, says because they're not deceased 1 year. That's really interesting, because if you go back and you look at the other deceased David Philip Dance, which is this one, we don't get that problem. We see all of the ordinances. And we hovered over them in the previous screen, but we're just going to look and see the entire thing here. Once again, the sealing to spouse doesn't show because his spouse is still living. What's really interesting about these two different records is that this record had a death added by Family Search itself on the 30th of April. And so, and this record here, if we go to that person record, you'll notice that this death was added by a friend of the family. So what we're going to do, I think probably first, is we're going to get the living record, and here's something that I've never seen before, but if we click on Merge Living Person, then it should allow us to merge this record into the correct deceased record. So just to make sure I've got the right one here, that's not the right one because we can't see the ordinances. This one is the right one. We can see those ordinances. This is the one that was done by Family Search. So I'm going to take this person ID, just copy it, Control-C, and then since I'm still anchored on the living record for David Philip Dance, I'm going to do Merge Living Person. I'm going to put the valid person ID in of the valid deceased record, and then we're going to do a merge. But this is telling us that you can't merge a living person with a deceased person. So because we can't merge a living with a deceased person, we'll go back to this living record by clicking this hyperlink, and we'll edit this information here to mark them as deceased. And so once we mark as deceased, then we'll put in the date of death, which is 21 April 2018. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And that comes up and shows that it is a standardized way to put in the...
Why don't you spell it out?
Oh, it wants you to spell it out. That's what's going on. So we click it, and we select... That's interesting that it won't allow us Okay, so it's now saying it's standard, and the date of and the death place is Pingree, and it comes up in the list, and we pick the correct one, and then if I click save, then it marks him as deceased. So now that that record is marked as deceased, then we can come down here to possible duplicates, and it shows the record from Family Search, is what I think this is, as the possible duplicate. So we'll review that. And we will...
We want this one to take that one.
So if this the birth name is the same, so we can just leave it. We don't have to either replace or reject. Sex is male. It does show the birth here, so we'll add that across to that record. And the date of death is in the to be merged record, but it doesn't have the place of death. So that's how we're going to do that merge. Now here's some interesting side notes. There are some alternate names, and I looked earlier, and each one of these names says that it was added by Family Search in the last couple of years. Not sure how that happened, but you can tell that this one's not correct because it's got a K in front of it. And we also know that Davis Philip Dance is not correct. So what we'll do is we'll add the alternate name of David Philip Dance so that we can bring that with us. And then, while we're at it, we'll reject that one, and we'll reject that one because those are not correct. Then it shows spouse and child. And then here, we're comparing the names and also the person IDs of each one, and those are the same. And so we'll neither replace nor reject because that is the same information. So at this point, then we'll click Continue Merge. So just before we began typing in why this merge is correct, we realized that this is the record that we want to keep because it's the one that actually has all of the temple ordinances attached to it. So what we're going to do is click Switch Positions, and we're going to have to do some of this replacing again because of that mistake. But if we see that this has the date of death and the place of death, so we're going to replace that there. And we'll have to worry about these alternate names later on. We can maybe just delete the ones that are incorrect later on. But then we're going to add the living spouse and the child. And then same as before, this information is the same, so we don't need to do anything with that. So now we do the Continue Merge, and we're going to say merging living record into deceased record marked as deceased by Family Search. And then I'm going to take and copy this to say that that's the person ID of the record that has the temple ordinances attached to it. Then we're going to do Finish Merge. Okay, so now if we scroll down, we see that there are now only 2 David Philip dances left because we did the appropriate merge. And this is the one that we're looking at, and it is the one that has all of the ordinances attached to it, as you can see here. So we merged the living record into this one, and now those 2 are merged together with the proper date and place of death, and we still have all the ordinances intact. So with the proper deceased record as the one that we're anchored on, you can tell because it's highlighted in gray, we're going to see if we can find any duplicates, if we can find this one as a duplicate. We click on possible duplicates, and there it is. So if we review the merge, then you can see that this is the person ID that we are anchored on and have been working on, and it's the one that has all the ordinances attached to it. So what we're going to do now is basically what we did a few minutes ago. We're going to scroll down through. The name is the same, so we don't need to bring it over. The sex is the same, so we don't need to bring it over. The birth is incomplete compared with what we already have in the original record. And the death date is actually incorrect. It says 2nd of April 2018, and the real date is 21 April 2018. So we won't bring any of that information across, so we would actually probably want to reject that one because it's incorrect data. This is more just incomplete or the same, so I don't think it matters that we replace or reject it. If we scroll down, we see that there's nothing on this side to merge as far as spouse and children, and we look and verify one more time that the person IDs of the parents are the same, and they are. So we're going to continue the merge, and this time merging duplicate entry created by family friend at time after David became deceased. We'll finish that merge because we look and we say this is the person that we know is correct based on that person ID, based on the correct date of death, whereas over here it's incorrect. So we'll finish the merge, and when we go back to the person record, now we'll see that David Philip Dance is the only David Philip Dance child in this family, whereas before we had 3 different David Philip Dances. So now we have all of those records merged correctly. Now, one other thing that we noticed as we finished merging David Philip Dance's information together, we've noticed that his brother, who died about a month before he did, also has 2 different records. This one is marked as date of death 17 March, and that was done by Family Search on the 25th of March. This one was updated by a son-in-law. So what we're going to do, rather than merge this ourselves, because what's interesting about this one is both of these records have all of the ordinance information intact. So it's actually going to be maybe a little bit more complicated to do that merge. You'll see all of those. And if I were to click on this one, you would see essentially the same thing. So what we're going to do is send this person a message. And we'll just say duplicate records for Galen. And then in this message, we'll just explain to him how we came across this and suggest to him how he can do the same merge. And then once I'm done typing in that message, I just click send. And then the next time he logs into Family Search, he'll see that he has a new message and can respond to that.